Have you ever created a bubble diagram? Have you ever created a space planning diagram? Have you ever wanted your space planning diagram to be in 3D? Now, have you ever wanted to create these diagrams in Revit? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create these diagrams in Revit, building on the concepts we have already gone through in this course. In understanding Revit color schemes from the first module, you can probably guess at that you can create these diagrams with just color schemes. But if you wanted to move the areas around, it would be easier to use mass objects. When using mass objects for space planning, you are given the flexibility to move mass objects around like Legos or building blocks to figure out the best configuration of the space. Like Legos, you're not just creating objects that are viewed in a plan view, but you are also creating objects that can be viewed in elevation or 3D. There are two types of mass objects that can be created in Revit: mass object family or in-place mass objects. One of the pitfalls of an in-place mass object is that it can only be used in that particular project or the project they were created in. But with them, you can create uniquely shaped masses. And a mass family object can be used in multiple projects, but their shapes are usually a standardized shape. To create an in-place mass object, all you have to do is go to the Massing tab and click on the In-Place Mass button. Give the mass a name, and then from there, just use the massing tools to create your uniquely shaped object. To create a mass family is like making any family. You just use the mass object template that Autodesk provides and use the creation tools to make your mass object. Though with a mass family, you can add some parameters to make the mass family a little more flexible than an in-place mass object. Just like there are two ways to create a mass object, there are two techniques to color a mass object. Like you have seen in a previous video, you can assign materials to the mass objects, and you can control the colors of the objects through the Materials menu. Another technique of coloring mass objects is with filters, which I showed an example of this with rated walls. No matter if it is an in-place mass object or a mass family, to change the color of the mass with materials, you should create a custom parameter, as I showed in a previous video, that controls the material of the mass that it is assigned to. This parameter could either be an instant or a type parameter, but I would suggest it being an instant parameter so that the material of the mass family can quickly be changed. To change the color of a mass family using materials, all you have to do is go to the properties of the mass family and change the material property. Controlling the color of mass objects using filters is a little faster and flexible technique than using materials. As we saw with the last module, we can create a filter for pretty much any parameter of an object. And this goes for mass objects as well. To change the color of a mass object with a material, you have to have a material parameter to do it with. But when you use a filter, you can use just about any type of parameter you can think of. We can use a mark parameter, a comments parameter. We can even use a custom parameter such as the STC parameter we created in an earlier video. Though we need to go into the project parameters to add mass objects to that parameter, but that is simple enough to do. Now that we have an understanding of how to color these mass objects, we can get into designing the schematic design. Here's a quick program of an office building. From this program, we will create a mass object for each of these room types listed. Then input the information about these rooms that's in the program. Based on some of the requirements from the program, we will create a separate view for each of the required parameters. We will create a view for the STC ratings. We will create a view for the room types, office, and so forth. We'll create a view for the departments that the rooms belong to. After we create these views, we'll add the proper filters to each of these views. Like this STC view, we will add the STC 45 and STC 50 mask filters to the view. Now that we've added our view filters to this view, don't forget to do the filter overrides, like changing your surface and your cut patterns to be some sort of solid color. That way we can understand the view once we get into our actual schematic design. I didn't mention this before, but if you want to use the same colors in another view, let's say you have a plan view and you have an elevation or 3D view that you need to use the same color scheme for, like this is an STC, and for every single instance that we're doing a STC filter on, I want my STC 45 and my STC 50 to look exactly the same. Well, instead of trying to figure out what you did in this view to create those new filters, what you can do is actually create a view template and apply that view template to the other views. When you do that, you're creating some consistency between your views. Now that we have each of these views, I'm going to tile these views so that I can see them all at the same time. Then we just start moving our Legos around to see how they meet the program. With our different filters views, we can see how moving the rooms around works for the different information that was part of the program. And because these are mass objects, we can go into a 3D view to see how the volumes of these spaces are affected as well. So in this video, we have seen the different types of mass objects: in-place mass and mass family. We have seen how to use mass objects for a schematic design, and we have seen how to color the mass objects based on the information within them.